I am recording right now, everyone. Good morning to those who have dialed in. There is one thing that I'm looking for just a split second. I do not see the button that I want to share or that I want to. There we go. Okay, perfect. So good morning to everyone who is dialed in to our Brunch and Learn for the month of May. We are super excited to be with you all today. So glad that you have taken the time to join us wherever you may be. If you're right here with us in the Zoom application, great. We're glad that you're here. If you're joining us from another platform, be it LinkedIn or YouTube, we are so glad that you have taken the time to join in as well. My name is Japera Denson, and I have the pleasure of being your host for today's Brunch and Learn. We welcome you to another Brunch and Learn. Every single month we have been doing these events, these continuing education events for the qualified, and they have been great. People have been raving about how enriching and how wonderful the information is. We have a diverse group of speakers who take the time to come and be with us every single month. So the topics have ranged from everything specific to HIM to things that are targeted more towards the personal development of the professional. So today is no exception. It's going to be outstanding. It's going to be great. It will be an exciting session. I do want to share with you that these Brunch and Learn events are not only designed to provide you with outstanding content, but we also want to create a space for you to connect with your peers. You get to meet some new colleagues. So for those who are in Zoom, please feel free to utilize the chat feature. Let other people know if you're interested in connecting on LinkedIn. I mean, just utilize that chat feature as much as possible, and let's get some engagement going on. You can also post in the chat if you have any questions for our presenter throughout the time of the presentation. We're going to circle back around through the chat. We'll comb through it towards the end of the presentation, and we will read your questions to Stacie. She's our presenter for today. So again, utilize that chat feature as much as possible. Now, the Qualified is here to serve you in a variety of ways. For those who don't know much about the Qualified, I do want to share some information with you. We provide continuing educational opportunities. We provide tutoring services, online courses, certification exam preparation services, job placement. Sometimes people need help with that, right? So we can assist with job placement. We can assist with recruitment and so much more. It's so many things that we do, but please check out our website for more information, and we have it posted down at the bottom of the screen. It's www.the-qualified.com. All right. So like I said before, today's presentation is definitely going to be exciting. It's going to be inspiring and enriching. Stacie Buck is the president and senior consultant of RadRx. It's a company that provides radiology coding and consulting services to a national client base. So that includes hospitals, imaging centers, radiologists, billing companies, and a variety of consulting companies as well. Stacie is coming to us today with over 32 years of experience in the healthcare industry, and we get to learn more about her journey today. So everyone, I introduce you to Miss Stacie Buck. Stacie, it is in your hands.
Thank you so much. First, I want to say thank you to the Qualified for inviting me to speak to your audience today. I'm getting to speak on one of the topics that I'm very passionate about. And I also want to thank all of the ladies at the Qualified for all that you do for the HIM profession. So thank you for that and all of your efforts. So today I'm talking on the six-figure solopreneur. And that topic, when I throw that out there, that always attracts a lot of folks when they hear the six figures. And, I mean, I know we probably have a variety of people listening, whether you are at the beginning of your journey in HIM and medical coding, or some of you may be a little bit further along. There's always this question, about earnings potential and, how much can I really earn as a medical coder, as an HIM professional? And I'm here to tell you that I feel that all professionals in our field have the ability to be six-figure earners. Everyone's journey may be different, and it may take a combination of multiple things in order to reach that goal. But I do truly believe that it is possible for anyone who has the time and the dedication to put in to make that happen. So I'm going to start out telling you a little bit about my story, my journey in the HIM field. And when like a lot of people, I accidentally fell into the HIM profession. It was something that I didn't know that existed. And when I first went to college, I went to get a bachelor's degree in business administration. That was my initial plan. And I was going to graduate college and then teach at the high school level business classes because that was my passion. Well, reality kind of hit me that money. So that wasn't really a practical career choice. And also, I had started working at a surgery center during my first semester of college, working in the medical records department. So at that time, I got to learn all about the wonderful world of HIM. Back then, that was 1992. I can't believe I've been in the profession that long. It's funny when I go out and speak and people see me, they're like, wow, they're like, you don't look like you can be that old. I'm like, oh, I was a coding prodigy. I've been doing it since I was like 7 years old. That's what I like to tell people. But I actually just was doing a file clerk position. And so that's how I found out about HIM. And then I decided to do a 2-year degree, an associate's degree in business administration. And then I went on to earn my bachelor's degree in health information management at Florida International University in Miami. So that's my educational background. And I held, different positions along the way. I started as just basically a medical records, file clerk. Then I started doing records analysis. Then eventually I got into medical coding. Then I also did some work as a revenue analyst for HCA for a while. And then from there, I went to work for a company called US Diagnostic back in 2000, which is what started my journey in radiology. And there I served as their first and only internal auditor. They had plans to add others, but they never got to that point because of just some restructuring in the company. But after being internal auditor for them, I was promoted to corporate compliance officer, which had actually been one of my dreams to become a corporate compliance officer. The more involved I got in the field, I was really drawn to compliance. And then from there, I left radiology for a little bit and tried some different things for a couple years, didn't like them at all. And then I ended up coming back to radiology when I joined with a company called Southeast Radiology Management. I joined that company as a partner, and then we were doing billing and consulting services in the radiology space. And then from there, I started my own business back in 2008. So for me, when I was really young, I was always intrigued with business. I always wanted to be a business owner. I was that student in high school who was a member of the Future Business Leaders of America. And I always wanted to do something, in business and have my own business. I didn't necessarily know what that would look like, though, when I was younger. And as I got into the HIM field more and more, I saw that there were so many opportunities to go out there and have your own, business in this space. And so what I did initially was back in 2000, I started what you would call like a side hustle, where I was doing some consulting on the side in addition to my full-time income. So I would do some auditing on the side. Also, when HIPAA, was coming about, for implementation in 2003, gosh, over 20 years ago, I was writing policies and procedures for different providers and helping them with HIPAA implementation. And I wrote a lot of policies and procedures for a lot of different things. I also wrote compliance programs for different providers. So those were the types of things that I started doing on the side just for smaller providers to get that type of experience. And then I just never had the courage to go out completely on my own and start my own business because, like a lot of people, if let's say at that time I was my sole source of income, to step away from a full-time job where you have a guaranteed paycheck and you have benefits, that's extremely difficult to do, to take that risk. So what ended up happening with me was I actually got pushed down the path of like entrepreneur or solopreneur, as I like to call it now. When I was working with Southeast Radiology Management, that was really where I spent a lot of time doing consulting. I would say that's where I got the bulk of my consulting experience, and it is in the specialty of radiology, both diagnostic and interventional radiology. And then after 3 years of being there at Southeast Radiology, the other partner in the company, he said, I'm ready to get out of healthcare. I'm going to pursue photography full time. I'm done here. I'm going to sell the company. And he had imaging centers that he owned. And he's like, I'm getting out completely. So I'm like, okay, what do I do now for my next act? So as luck would have it, I actually was able to take a few clients that were with Southeast Radiology and roll them over into my own company and start working with them. So I didn't actually have to start from scratch. So I already had some income coming in from those clients I had the existing relationship with. Now, I will tell you something that completely turned my world like upside down initially when I started. These are the types of things that entrepreneurial people will face. So the biggest source of income that came with me to my new company actually decided to breach the contract and stop paying me 2 months in. And this was supposed to be income that was going to carry me through 6 months, so I would be able to build the business. So my income went away. I was barely making any money, and I still have like all of these bills to pay. And I'm like, well, what the heck do I do now? So I considered, doing contract work for other companies, but thankfully I had enough business coming in where I could still like move forward. But I shared just that piece of the story. I wish I could get into more details about that because it's a crazy story, but you will face obstacles in business. And it's really going to come down to how are you going to approach those obstacles and are you going to push through? I could have given up multiple times in the past, 16 years that have been in business. You have good times and you have not so good times. And you really need to ride out those not so good times and really keep pressing forward. And so what I had wanted to do initially when I started my own company was I had these dreams of building this multi-million-dollar company and, coding and consulting company. And then I would sell it and then I would retire and I would ride off into the sunset. Well, that's not what happened. And there are reasons for that. So one thing that changed my focus was back in 2010, I had some health issues and I was unable to work for about like 8 months. And so that really made me reconsider, my life and what I was doing with it and how I wanted it to look. And up till that time, I was like a workaholic. I was always working on something in my business. I was always volunteering within the professional association. And so when you go through something like that, it's very life-changing. And so your priorities shift. So I knew at that point in time that I didn't want to be working like a crazy person anymore. So I actually chose to take a new approach to my business after that point in time, because I used to have a lot of contractors that worked for me and I would take on big projects and it was super stressful managing people. And I was having to work a lot of hours and I just didn't want to do it. So over the course of several years, I really just started taking on projects that I could work solely on my own, where I didn't need the assistance of other professionals working with me. And so that's really what changed the trajectory of my business. I found a way to make that work with just me being the primary employee. Every once in a while, I'll still bring in a 1099 to help me with something like really small, but I am the business. I am the one doing all of the work in the business. People think I have this really, really large company, and I like to give that impression that it's really large, but it's me behind the scenes doing all the work. And so in today's session, I'll talk to you a little bit about how to get yourself to that point if that's something that interests you and you want to become that entrepreneur, more of the solopreneur. What I'll share with you today will really give you ways on how to achieve that. So let's go ahead and talk about first, what is a solopreneur? So Japira, you can go ahead and advance the slides. Well, I already finished my story, so we'll move to, there we go. Okay, so a solopreneur, this is a relatively new term that has come about, particularly over on LinkedIn. You may see this a lot if you are on LinkedIn. And so a solopreneur is the same thing as an entrepreneur, with the exception that this is a person who has a business where really they are the sole employee. And that is how I have set up my company. As I said, occasionally I'll look to a 1099, but that is very minimal. I am the one that I own the business. I'm also doing all the work of the business, and I'm responsible for all aspects of the business, even, the operations piece that maybe you would normally have other people doing, like payroll people, HR people, all that. all the paperwork associated with the business. That's the part I don't like, is doing that. I'm like, I really would like to have a personal assistant, and I actually am considering passing more things over to a personal assistant to help me manage some of those tasks. But you are responsible for organizing, managing, and assuming all of the risks of the business. So it really comes down to you as that single person. So next slide, please. Let's talk about some pros and cons of solopreneurship. So I can tell you, I love, 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 like love the pros. And for me personally, I think the pros definitely like outweigh the cons. So one thing that I tell people, if they're thinking about starting their own business, whether it's being a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, where you're actually starting a business with employees, you need to get used to the fact that you are giving up a regularly scheduled paycheck and you are giving up benefits. I think that is probably the biggest obstacle that people face when they think about going out on their own, is giving up that stability that they have with a full-time job. Now, obviously, if you start a side hustle and you're doing something part-time in addition to your full-time employment, that is the best of both worlds, where you have time to test the water, see how you do, and then actually grow a business, and then hopefully be able to transition to be working full-time for yourself. So another con that, kind of ties into that is income fluctuations. I can tell you, working for yourself, when business is good, it's really good, and you have really great, months, really great quarters. And then you could have things come crashing down where boom, there's not much going on like for a while. So you have to deal with the ups and downs of your income. Early on, when I was a larger company and I had more contractors working for me, I had some really large contracts. And then it was back in 2000, I'm trying to think, maybe 2012, I think it was, that first quarter. Two of my biggest clients decided, no, we no longer need your services. Not that there was anything wrong with the services that we were giving, they just no longer needed them. And 75% of my income was gone within 1 month. So that is a very big adjustment when you are working as a business owner, or as the solopreneur, because that could happen. And unfortunately, people don't always give you a lot of notice when they're going to terminate services. And I find if you write termination clauses and early termination clauses into contracts, sometimes you get a lot of pushback and people don't want to give you guarantees. So you have to weigh, okay, do I take the risk that this could go away to get the benefit? There's a lot that goes into contracting, but I would say those income fluctuations, and then just not knowing when you're going to get paid. For example, I invoice clients once a month, and then the invoices are due depending upon what we've agreed to in the contract. Some are due within 15 days, some are due within 30 days. Well, sometimes I feel like clients think that those due dates are just a suggestion, because it could take you 30 days to get paid when you're supposed to get paid in 15. It could take you 60 days to get paid when you should be paid in 30. It can even take up to 90 to 120 days when it's supposed to be in 30. And so that can create some cash flow issues. So I would say that's probably around money. That's the biggest con, I think, is that you don't know when you're getting paid. Even though you have all this money in accounts receivable, when you're getting it, there's always a question mark around that, depending upon how timely your clients are paying you. Obviously, there's customer acquisition and retention. You're always having to work on that, when you're in this type of space. And then managing 1099s or employees. I should have also put employees as well. So if you have W-2 employees or 1099s, then you're managing a lot of people. I used to manage a lot of 1099s. I had a team of coders that worked for me. And honestly, it was so stressful between balancing the client's needs and then keeping, the employees happy, and then employees flaking out and then not showing up to work. And then I had to step in, and then I had to fill in for them, and I would have to cancel plans. And I just found it to be a very big headache, trying to find solid, reliable people. So I felt like that was a big con. And then I have more stress. It can be more stressful for the reasons that I just talked about. But on the flip side, now let's talk about the pros. Okay. I feel the way I've structured my business as a solopreneur, I have actually made a less stressful situation for myself, how my business used to be structured. And the reasons for that are the other pros. When you are the solopreneur, you have complete autonomy over what you're doing. You choose who you work with, when you work with them, how you work with them. You don't have anyone dictating that to you, which I absolutely love. I also have freedom and flexibility. I can set my schedule the way that I want to set my schedule. what I've been doing for years is I do a 4-day work week. I work Monday through Thursday and I take every Friday off. So that's a nice perk that I am able to do. And every once in a while, I'll work on a Friday, a few hours if there's something like really important that comes up. But that's something that I really held to. And I hold that boundary and I keep that Friday. So right now I'm only working 4 days a week. I would love to even get that down to 3 if I can. So that's in my long-term plan there. And just the freedom of scheduling. Like I know when I used to work, a full-time job, let's face it, you're going and working for somebody 40 hours a week. And then when it gets to the weekend, what do you have to do? You have to go grocery shopping. You have to do all your personal errands. And so your weekend is taken up with doing all of these other things, what a friend of mine calls them life maintenance, your errand running and all that, the life maintenance stuff, ladies, if you go to the nail salon like me, that's something that you do that takes time out of the weekend, and all these different things. Well, I have the ability to do those things during the week. I put those things on my calendar and then I schedule my work stuff around that to the best of my ability. Now I have some clients, I'm standing meetings that are locked in stone, but the point is I can do all of those quote life maintenance activities and run my errands and get those done Monday through Thursday. So when I get to my 3-day weekend, I truly have my three-day weekend to actually enjoy myself. So I would say for me, that is like huge. The biggest benefit that I have that flexibility and then I have that freedom and that autonomy to really just determine what my work week looks like each week. And then earnings potential, I think that goes without saying. When you're with an employer, there's a certain cap you're going to reach and you're not going to be able to earn like anymore. Now, obviously, if you're working in a sales position or something like that, that may be a little different, but most of your traditional positions that you've got your 40-hour-a-week job, you've got your paycheck, you'll get your increases every year. If you get a 3% increase at an employer, you're lucky if you get that. And let's just face it, that does not even keep up with the cost of things, especially the past couple years. How many of you would have loved to have had some extra income coming in or be making more money than what you were making in a full-time job? So really you have unlimited earnings potential because you can get out of your own business whatever you put into it. So I have just found this particular lane, like I said, of solopreneur, like so beneficial. Quality of life is so much better. And I am making way more money now than I used to, working less hours. I can tell you most weeks I work about 28 hours. Sometimes it might even be a little bit less. I might have a few weeks here and there during the course of a year where I work 40 hours a week if I have a large project that I'm working on. But generally, I work 28 hours a week and I make more money than I've ever made, even when I had the team of coders and people working for me. So I don't actually have the headache of managing the people and dealing with all those other things. So let's go over to the next slide and talk about some attributes of a successful solopreneur. And then after that, we'll get into how to monetize your skills and how you can take some steps to move in this direction. So I think the first thing that's important is passion. You have to do what you love. We always hear, find what you love to do and the money will follow. And I truly believe that there is always a way to monetize something that you are passionate about. And if you are passionate about this profession, whatever you're doing in the HIM space, whatever you're doing in the coding space, there are a lot of opportunities for you to actually build a business utilizing your skill sets. Also, self-motivation. Obviously, you have to be that go-getter. You have to be able to get up in the morning and motivate yourself to get going. And I'll tell you, if you have a business, structured like mine, I have days where I'm like, oh gosh, I wish I could retire. Even only working 28 hours a week, I have those days. But for the most part, it's easy to motivate yourself to work when okay, it's Monday, but guess what? I have 4 days a week. I'm going to have a Friday and I'm going to have my 3-day weekend. Or, oh, my schedule is a little light today. I don't have to be in the office like all day. So even in those more difficult times, I'll admit it, I get burned out sometimes, that I think that's with anybody who, is working in something and you're doing the same thing for a while. But when you think about the benefits, that's what keeps you going. So you have to be motivated to get up every day and like keep going at it and then be able to adjust. Obviously, you need to be able to adjust, I would say, and pivot to different things and maybe change your approach. Discipline, obviously, discipline is going to go along with self-motivation and then persistence. If you are going to give up the first time that you hit an obstacle, then you will not be successful. I mean, if I could spend a day with all of you talking through all different kinds of scenarios, I had to push through so many different obstacles to keep going. And so many times I did want to give up. And there were a few times I was talking to other companies about going to work for them full time and walking away from doing my own business full time just because the struggles were so difficult. But what I found is that things whenever I was considering going to work for someone else, things would come to me, projects would come to me, and then I'm like, oh, I don't need that job. So I took that as a sign from above that I was to keep persisting in this direction and stick with my own business and not go with another company. There was one point in time, a large consulting company had wanted me to like work for them. And I knew the people there. And so they knew the struggles I was having in my business. And they're like, well, hey, just come work for us. And when they made me the offer, and it was a good offer. I mean, early in my career, I would have loved it and I would have jumped on it. I turned them down and they were surprised because, again, knowing the people, they knew my situation. And I just said, you know what? I said, I would rather roll the dice and see how things go in my business, because I said I could sign one contract that could be completely life-changing. And I don't want to go work for someone else, because at that point, if I took a job with someone, you're working 40 to 50 hours a week, you're traveling, you're on the road. And I didn't want to do that. I had traveled at one point in my career and it's not something I enjoy. So I turned that down. They thought I was crazy, but I turned it down in the worst of times and I persisted. And I am so glad that I did. And I continue to arrive to where I'm at today. And then you also have to be innovative and forward thinking. I think, especially now, considering technology being introduced and evolving at a rapid pace, you always want to make sure that you're thinking ahead. What are your next steps? What is the profession going to look like? How will technology affect our profession? And then how can you utilize technology to make you better in the profession? We have a lot of, exciting times. I know that in our profession, the AI technology, there are a lot of people who are scared and fearful about how that will affect our profession. And I understand that. But if you look at it bigger picture, there's actually a lot of opportunity for those of us in the HIM profession and coding profession. Will our job roles look different in the future? Absolutely. But the skill sets are always going to be needed. They're just going to be with different job titles. And then you have to be risk tolerant. Like I said, if you're going all out on your own, 100%, you have to be able to tolerate those risks. And that would be, income, loss of income, unhappy clients, disgruntled clients. Happens every once in a while. Even with your best efforts, sometimes there's difficult people. Not you all don't know what that's about, right? Nobody's ever dealt with someone difficult or like unreasonable. So I've encountered those as well, but I can say overall, my clients have been amazing. I work with a great group of people, over the years, and I've had very few issues with any clients or any type of disagreement. So overall, that's been a very positive experience, but you have to understand you're working with a lot of different personality types. So that's something as well. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. And now that I've talked to you a little bit about what it looks like to be a solopreneur, pros and cons, attributes of that. So how do you create the solopreneurship business of yours? So I can tell you the number one thing, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more later. The number one thing that you can do for yourself is establish yourself as a subject matter expert. That is going to be the key to having your own business, your own side hustle. If you only want to do something part-time, or if you want to replace your full-time employment with your own business. And so some things that you can consider for monetizing your expertise: you can create a physical product, you can sell a physical product, you can create digital products, you can do webinars, online courses, and consulting services. So these are things that I have set up in my business. Now, some of you, if you're newer to the profession, you're like, well, gee, Stacie, I can't do any of these. I can't like offer any of this stuff. Well, yes, you can. And I'm going to explain how you can. Are you going to be offering consulting services? Probably not. But I want you to think about it this way. There was several years ago, I was at this conference and I was talking to another business owner. We weren't talking about business. We were talking about more things like in personal aspects of our life. And I said to her, I go, sometimes I just feel like, who am I to like say anything to like anybody? I feel like I don't really, know very much in this particular area that we were talking about. Again, not business, but this applies in business as well. And she said to me, she goes, Stacie, she goes, you only have to be one step ahead of the person behind you to be able to help someone. So she's like, it doesn't matter that maybe you're not the most experienced person or most knowledgeable person in this particular area, but you know more than someone else does. So it's about taking your knowledge in a particular area and then sharing that with other people. So I have had the privilege of speaking to some new professionals in the code, and particularly in the coding profession. Coders seek me out and always want to talk with me. And I've met some very interesting people, and I have met some real go-getters. So for example, a while back, I talked to someone and she was showing me how she made all of these study tools and things to help her when she was in school and to help her learn things. And she's explaining to me some of these tools that she created. And I'm like, you know what? I go, you could take these tools and you could monetize these. I'm like, you could sell them to other, people who need these to study, who need these to learn. And that was something simple. She wasn't even working in the profession yet, but I saw this. There's also another person that I follow on LinkedIn, and Revka Stearns. Some of you may know her from LinkedIn. So I'm giving Revka a shout out. I hope I'm saying her name right. The information that she posts on LinkedIn for free, I'm like, oh my gosh, Revka should be monetizing this. There's no reason to give it away for free. And I see a lot of other people on LinkedIn sharing a lot of knowledge for free that actually people would pay for. Now, I'm a proponent of helping people for free. I do a lot of free stuff on LinkedIn. I'm like always doing educational posts. You don't have to pay for that. I do free webinars and I do different presentations. But if you're looking to start out, in this field and you're thinking, well, how can I do this? That's how. Think about, what you have in front of you, what you can give to someone else. If you're one of those people who's gifted at teaching other people or creating materials to learn, I was always that person. I liked to take a subject and like dissect it and then simplify it and then present it to other people. So I was always creating teaching tools even before I ever got to this point, like in my business. So that was just a passion that I had. So if you have any of those skills, then you have the ability to create some type of product, whether it be physical or digital. Most likely it's probably digital. That's the most cost-effective way to go. For me, I do have a physical product. I sell a reference manual. That's my physical product. Well, then digital products, I also have an ebook for that. So that would be my digital. I do webinars, I have online courses, and then I have consulting services. So I've diversified over time, but I used to just start doing webinars. That was what everyone did. So if there's something that you're knowledgeable about or have expertise in, you could start there. And I also want to just say that I'm talking about this in the context of like HIM and coding, but everything I'm telling you, you could apply to another passion you have in your life. It doesn't have to be for HIM or coding. Maybe you're working full-time in HIM and coding and you have something else that you absolutely love and you want to do, then you can apply these same principles to your other passion and then earn money that way. So these are just a few of the things that you can do. So let's go to the next slide and talk about how you would get started. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because this is a lot of technical stuff. I'm just going to point things out that you need to consider, because then I want to get into what I want to spend the most time on is really establishing yourself as a subject matter expert. That's where we'll sit for the most part for the rest of our time. So to get started, if you are looking for resources to learn about starting a business, I recommend visiting sba.gov. That's the Small Business Association. There is a wealth of information out there for you to learn about setting up a business. The first thing you should do before you really set up any business is consult a CPA or a tax professional to see what type of structure is going to be best for you. So you could set up as a sole proprietorship, an LLC, an S corporation. How you set up your business, there are a lot of tax ramifications that go with each of those. And so you want to make sure when you set up initially that you are making the best choice to get you the most tax benefit. And there are pros and cons of each type of structure. And again, if you go to sba.gov, you can find all that information there. So you want to select a name for your business and look at that legal structure, contact that professional. Some people just start out as a sole proprietor because it's the easiest thing to do. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. It's the easiest to get going, but then over time, as you start making money, it may make more sense to become an LLC or an S corporation. So you can always change as well. Me personally, I'm an S corporation. What I like about that with the S corporation is that my company profit gets pulled over to my personal tax return and it gets taxed at the personal like rate. So that's whatever profits come over, it's taxed over there. And that's how that happens. Now, one of the downsides of being the S corporation is when I'm taking a payroll check for myself. I have a payroll service that I use online. I love it. I log on, I do my own payroll, plugging in the numbers, and I get double taxed. I'm paying the employer share of payroll taxes and I'm paying the employee. So that's I'm like, that kind of stinks. But again, in the grander scheme of things, that may be more beneficial than some of these other structures, depending upon your individual situation. So if you want to incorporate, you would have to file an articles of incorporation. If you want to have a fictitious name, that's a separate filing. For example, when I first incorporated, my company is what I incorporated as Virtual Coding Network Incorporated, because I had one idea of what I was going to do with my business. Well, then when it changed and I decided I'm just going to go into radiology consulting, I said, I want a name that reflects that. And I filed a fictitious name, RadRx, or that's a DBA. So my corporation is still Virtual Coding Network, but I do business as RadRx. So those are two separate filings. And then reemployment tax, or what we used to call unemployment tax. Do you know when you have your own company, you have to pay unemployment tax on yourself? That's something I didn't know. And I'm like, that's interesting. I just thought if I went out of business, like, too bad for me, I didn't get anything. But no, you actually can collect unemployment. So you're paying your unemployment taxes in. And then sales tax, is also something you need to consider depending upon what type of products you're selling. So you would also have to do a filing for that and then get a tax number for that. You might need additional licenses or permits depending upon where you're operating, what is required for like county, things like that. Obtaining a federal employer identification number. Again, if you work initially as a sole proprietor, you can work under your social security number, but even as a sole proprietor, you can still get an EIN. So that's something that you may want to do. And then a business bank account. You'll need all of this information before you go to the bank and you open up a business bank account. You always want to make sure you keep personal and business expenses completely separate with no mixture. That is one of the big things. Okay, let's go to the next slide and I'll share a few more things. So insurance, when you are in business for yourself, whether you have a company that employs people or it's just you need to look at what types of insurance are required. So general liability insurance, that's not something that I carry for the nature of the work that I do. I don't sit in an office where people are coming to me. I'm not going, there's nothing like that. I sit in my home, I work by myself. Nobody's coming to see me. I don't need that. Now, if you have office space somewhere and people are coming to see you and visit you in your office, you're going to need some general liability insurance to protect you if people are coming on your premises. Professional liability. We all should be familiar with this, working in the HIM and coding profession. To be an entrepreneur in this space, that solopreneur, you will have to get the professional liability insurance. 100%, that's non-negotiable. You need that. That's something that you can get through AHIMA. I think AAPC may also have a company that they work with. I've been with the same company for years. I don't even remember. I think I went in through AHIMA. So you get professional liability insurance. And then also now what I'm finding is clients are asking me for cybersecurity insurance. And that has been a real challenge because it's getting better now, because initially when clients started asking me for cybersecurity insurance, I couldn't get insured because of the size of my business. The solo practitioner, not large enough, the big companies wouldn't insure me. And then the one company that would insure me, it was ridiculously expensive. It was cost prohibitive. And so there was one client, I'm like, yeah, the income from you isn't big enough. I'm not doing this. They were requiring it as part of their BAA. So notice here, I put on both of these BAA limits. What I've found more recently is that years ago, your business associate agreements used to be more generic, and they wouldn't even necessarily say you needed to carry liability insurance. It was not always mentioned in a BAA. Now BAAs are requiring you to carry professional liability and cybersecurity, and they're telling you how much they want you to carry. So if somebody presents a BAA to you, you got to pay attention to that. Because I was like in the bad habit of just like, browsing it and signing it. And now I have to read everything very carefully to make sure that I have the insurance limits that clients are providing. The cybersecurity thing is a little bit of a sticking point. I mean, some clients will make an exception to that, because really in my role, what I'm doing is I'm not storing any PHI. I'm working as a remote employee. I'm actually through a VPN, remote access, like any other employee that they have in their organization. sitting in my home. So some of them actually will make an exception and say, okay, you don't need to carry the cybersecurity, but they will, of course, want the professional liability. And the professional liability, I think, is now I pay like $350 a year, not a lot. Cybersecurity is now available on an individual basis for I think maybe around $300 as well. So there are more options out there now for the smaller employers if they need that. And then health insurance. When you're not working for a company, if you're completely on your own, you need to consider health insurance. What are you going to do for a solution for that? When I first left my full-time employment, I had Cobra for a while. Then Cobra goes away. What do you do? So I can tell you what I do now and what has worked very well for me. So obviously, some people get insurance through, the healthcare exchanges and whatnot, and like that's an option, but it can be very pricey because obviously your premiums there are going to be based on your income. So if you're making higher income, you don't get any assistance and you're going to pay a high premium and then you have a high deductible. So the question is, why am I paying all this money, for this insurance and it never kicks in for me because I have such a high deductible? So what I've done is I have gone to a cost sharing plan, and there are several out there. I actually am with Liberty Health Share, and it's not insurance, but it's kind of like this collective where everybody's paying into it like insurance. And then when you have healthcare expenses, they actually help you reimburse those healthcare expenses. And so there are different levels of plans that like you can sign up for, but I can tell you that I pay $239 a month for my cost share plan. And I love it because if you're someone that doesn't require a lot of healthcare and your health expenses are low, it makes a lot of sense to go that route. So I would encourage people to just look at non-traditional ways of insuring yourself. So again, it isn't technically health insurance, but it's cost sharing. And I like doing it because the money is going into paying other people's bills. So it's like this collective where you don't have the fat cats, and the big corporations getting rich off of collecting insurance premiums. You're actually helping other people in need pay their medical bills. And then when you have a need, then it's there for you to pay yours as well. So some other things you'll want to do, set up payroll. Oh my gosh, that is something you should do early on. It's just get a like affordable payroll like service like online to do this, because I got in a hot mess with taxes and payroll and all that like early on, and it was a complete mess and it took a while to like unravel. I wish that was something I would have done like a lot earlier. And then services contracts, you'll have to look at constructing, your contracts, what a draft agreement would look like. These days, you could, I used to say, oh, go Google it. You can find anything online. Oh my gosh, ChatGPT will write you a contract. I love ChatGPT. It'll give you a sample to start with, but of course, you should have an attorney review any contract as well. And then writing a business plan. So depending upon what you want to do and how you want to move forward, you may or may not need a written business plan. If you want to get any type of grants or any type of financing, then you will have to submit a written business plan. But if you're just starting out with a little side hustle and you don't need to get money from a bank or from the government or anyone, then you probably don't need to write the detailed business plan. All right. So let's next go to the next slide and we'll talk about finding clients and customers briefly. And then I'll talk to you more about establishing yourself as a subject matter expert. And then we can take some questions. So the best way to find clients and customers is through networking. Well, okay, that's one of the two best ways, networking. The top way is establishing yourself as an SME, which I'm going to talk about on a separate slide because that's so important. And volunteering. And I feel like the two of those like go hand in hand. I have been volunteering in my professional association going all the way back to probably 2000, 2001 was when I started volunteering for FHIMA years ago. And I've volunteered at the national level, the local level. I mean, just about any position you could think of, I've probably held that position, board positions, committee chair positions, and you get to meet a lot of people, doing those positions. What I found interesting was when I got to travel at the national level, like when I was president of FHIMA, and I would go to other states and network with other professionals. If they had a need for my business, for what I offered, there was almost this instant credibility that I think came with like being president of FHIMA. I don't know why, but like people wouldn't ask for references. They wouldn't dig into anything. They would just be like, yeah, send me your pricing, send me your information, and then sign a contract. And I always found that like super interesting. So I think there's something to that. If people see you in certain, high level positions, even on the volunteer level, then I think that says something about your commitment to the profession, and then just the level that you operate at. So that was something that I thought was beneficial. And then you never know who you're going to meet. I mean, you could randomly meet people when you go to conferences, state conferences, local meetings, and make connections. And then someone you meet may actually need your services or know someone who could need your services. So networking, volunteering is so beneficial to your career, regardless of what you want to do. That is huge because you learn a bunch of skills from volunteering, and then you meet so many people that you otherwise would not meet. So website, everybody should have a website. You should have a web presence. There are so many different tools that you can use that are either for free to get started or a very minimal cost. So that does not have to be a huge undertaking. And then social media. Social media is huge. I can say LinkedIn is probably your best place to go. When we're talking about finding potential clients for business. I am amazed at the number of professionals who are not on LinkedIn. I cannot tell you how underestimated, or maybe people just don't know. I mean, how many of you were like me and for years you had a LinkedIn profile and you never went out there and you never looked at it and it just sat there? It was kind of like an online resume, and nobody ever did anything on LinkedIn, and you just got spammed by a bunch of people. That's what LinkedIn used to be. But then several years ago, they set it up more like Facebook. And then how I got on LinkedIn was back in 2019. I went to a networking meeting, a local networking meeting, and there was a gentleman there who is a LinkedIn expert. He published a book on it and he was speaking at this event. And when I left this event, I was so excited about redoing my LinkedIn profile and getting on LinkedIn. And that was back in 2019. And I started watching what other people were doing, who had success on LinkedIn. And one person you should follow if you want to be a solopreneur is Justin Welsh on LinkedIn. I love Justin Welsh. He is amazing. He's built a multi-million-dollar business as a solopreneur, and he is like such an inspiration. So he's one of the people that I follow over there on LinkedIn. But so anyway, so I got on LinkedIn 2019, and then I want to say I started posting more regularly, like on a daily basis, Monday through Friday, probably 2021. And I can tell you the only thing that I changed in my business over the past couple of years was my presence on LinkedIn. After I got momentum on LinkedIn, my income doubled in my business. And because I had changed nothing else as far as promoting myself and marketing, I'm attributing the increase to that and that alone, because it didn't make any sense for things to double. Now, a really huge client came to me that way. So that's, part of that increase. It's a big part of it, but it's not all of the increase. So LinkedIn has been a game changer in my business. So get on there. Some of you who are on Zoom and you're not connecting with us via LinkedIn, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, get on there and start using LinkedIn and start connecting with people. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to talk about is establishing yourself as an SME. So we'll go to the next slide. And this is where I really want you to focus. Where's the phone? Sorry, I still have a landline, unlike other people. So my landline is ringing. My cell phone's on silent. Okie dokie. So I feel for me, the number one key to success as a solopreneur is having established myself as a subject matter expert. That is going to be key. That is what is going to give you credibility in getting clients, regardless of what type of products that you're going to offer. So these are all of the different things that you can do, all of the different ways that you can participate in or participate to become noted as a subject matter expert. So I think, probably the most intimidating to most people would be speaking. I know that a lot of people have a fear of public speaking, but really, I have to say, out of all of the things that I have done that have advanced my career and have really established me as a subject matter expert, it's speaking at those conferences and also webinars. Don't feel that you have to jump out in front of a large crowd at a large conference to start. You can start with webinars. I actually started years ago, probably 2000, 2001. There was, what was the company called? Oh my gosh, I can't even think of it now. There was a company that used to do audio seminars before we had webinars. We just had the phone, right? And so I volunteered to do audio seminars for this particular company. I sent them a proposal and they're like, sure, Stacie, you can speak for us. And that's how I got started. And then people, liked me, the feedback they got was good. And so they would invite me to do more. And then eventually audio seminars became webinars where we actually have the slides and the full presentation in front of us. And then speaking at conferences, getting in front of, audiences, that is even better than webinars because people actually can see you, they can interact with you. There's just something about face to face. I know we're in this Zoom world, but nothing replaces, in-person conferences. As an attendee, I love them. As a speaker, I love them because when I'm speaking, I can see my audience. I can see their reaction. I can make a connection with them that I can't make via webinar. So speaking is the number one. So if you have a fear of speaking, you got to get over it. I used to be horrible at public speaking and hated it. I took a speech class in high school and my teacher would say, Stacie, you write beautiful speeches. Stop getting up in front of the class and reading them. I would read them word for word and just stand there and look down. And then I had to take a speech class in college where we couldn't do that. And I had a speech teacher who was amazing and mentored me and got me over that fear of public speaking. So writing, people are always looking for authors for blogs, for blog posts, professional magazines, APC Healthcare Business Monthly. I think they're probably the easiest major publication to get into. The Journal of AHIMA is a little bit more involved. I've actually published for both of them, but blogs are an easy way to start. You could even start your own blog. Don't write for someone else's, just start your own. Editorial advisory boards. I used to do a lot of that for newsletters years ago. What's nice about that is they would call you and interview you and ask you questions and then quote you for articles. And so your name gets out there as that subject matter expert and you haven't written the article. They've just quoted you for the article. Podcasts are huge. I did a podcast for a while that was really more just for fun. I don't do it anymore because it took so much time. But if you have a subject that you're passionate about and you want to educate others, you can start a podcast for free. I am so happy that we live in this time of amazing technology because there are so many things that you can do to promote yourself absolutely free of charge. So cost should never be a barrier to anyone getting out there and promoting themselves because there are just so many ways to do that without spending any money. And then coding discussion forums, they're still around. They're a little bit antiquated now, I would say, with social media. But if you're a member of any coding discussion forums, be an active participant to show off and showcase your knowledge there. I know that in the past, when I used to hire people, I would sometimes pull candidates from that pool because I would see their knowledge on a regular basis. And then leverage social media. That is, I think, huge. You can do the speaking, you can do the writing, you can have the podcast, but then how do you promote that? How do you get that out there? You need to do that on social media. And I think for us as professionals, the two that you would want to focus on, of course, number one is LinkedIn. And then number two is going to be YouTube. And some of you may be familiar with Victoria Mull, from Contempo Coding. She has that YouTube channel that she started now. It's been a little over 4 years. And I think last year she reached 100,000 subscribers on her YouTube channel. And she makes, I don't know how much she's making per month off of that now, but I know when I interviewed her for my podcast a couple years ago, she was making a ridiculous amount of income off of just YouTube content. She was making a full-time income off of her YouTube content. So that just goes to show that if you find something that you're passionate about and you're sharing your knowledge, that you actually can, grow a business where you are making those 6 figures. So these are all of the different ways that I have used to establish myself as a subject matter expert. And you can do the same. And just remember, you don't have to be at that consulting level, that person with all of this knowledge and expertise over the course of decades. It's start where you're at. If you're one of those people that people say to you, wow, you have a way of explaining things, you really do a good job, you're a good teacher. If people are always learning from you, then that's kind of a cue that you have that potential to create something that maybe other people may actually want to use. So I could keep talking and talking and talking, but I see it's 11:54. I got a lot more to say, but I'm going to see if there are any questions out there that we can answer.
Stacie, at this time, I don't see any questions in the chat, but I want to say this has been at the top of my list of presentations and information that I've received about entrepreneurship. it has like it's literally at the top, because this information was so good and so inspiring. I appreciate your transparency as well, and sharing the challenges that you've experienced. You were very, very real, and very honest about the challenges that you've experienced, but also you were equally real about the passion and the love that you have for what you do, and the pros and the benefits of being a solopreneur. So I want to say thank you for even taking the time to speak to our audience here on Zoom, and those who are streaming from other platforms as well. One question that came to my mind as you were presenting is, do you have plans to scale your business? You kind of mentioned it a little bit in the beginning, but do you have plans now to scale your business? And if so, how do you plan to do that?
So I will tell you what my goal has been and continues to be, and that is building sources of passive income. That is making money without working. So I actually want to work less than what I do. My goal is to eventually cut back on my consulting. I mean, I don't have to do consulting now. I mean, I'm doing it. I look at it this way. Sometimes opportunities come to you that are so good, you can't pass them up. And I'd like to retire. And so I'm like, let me get some money and bank some money here and throw some more money into some investments. But I really approach my business, and every solopreneur should approach it this way. What streams of passive income can you build? And that's why I recommend Justin Welsh, because he talks about that. So when I was, I talk about the ups and downs in the business where you have good times and you have bad times. So what happened was there was about that 3-year period right before the implementation of ICD-10. And during that time, because I'm so niche and I only do diagnostic radiology, interventional radiology, no one was spending money on that. They were spending money on ICD-10 implementation. So I was barely making money for 3 years. I was scraping by during those 3 years. And so that was like stressful. But what I ended up doing in 2015 was I started doing boot camps for the CARCC exam. And then in 2016, I made that a full online course. And so by building that online course, I can tell you that online course generates over 6 figures a year. It's a 6-figure online course just from that now, from the one thing. So I want to have more things like that. So that's one source of passive income. There's actually something that I'm part of that I have an affiliate arrangement with a coding software developer. It's radcoder.com. That's something that'll be a passive source of income for me, just for selling it and promoting it. It's putting it out there on social media. When you get sales, then you get a percentage of sales. So that's one way. So I'm looking at those types of things and building those. And I'm in talks with some other people. There's going to be an exciting announcement pretty soon with somebody that you all know that's being worked out behind the scenes. So that's really the goal. Is it's like, how can you make more money and work less? And people, hear that and they're like, that doesn't even make any sense. How is that possible? I can tell you that is absolutely possible. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I am making more now than I used to. My income is probably double what it used to be, and I work a lot less for having like double the income. So it's just really, building more of those opportunities. And I have so many opportunities to consider and so many people that come to me and want to partner with me. I'm like, I don't have enough time to implement all these, but I so want to do it. So I want to create something where I can step away from being at my desk, every day and make money. Like it's funny, like, I'm a golfer. And one time I was golfing with a friend who works in sales, and I looked at my phone and I'm like, oh, look at that. I got a course sale. I'm like, I just made $2,000 golfing. And he's like, I hate you because it's just there. It's like, it's online. People get it. They sign up for it. And he's a salesperson. He's grinding it out. He's got to be working to like make those sales. And so I'm making money while we're golfing and he's not, because he's not working, not in that very moment. So that's what I love about that. So yeah, if you can get something going digitally, get some type of online education, and get that passive income coming in, that's really your way to creating the freedom. Because consulting, again, most of my consulting, I'll be honest, comes from one client, medical, or Maverick Medical AI. I'm consulting with them on developing their AI coding platform. So to me, that's more of like, I'm putting all this time and effort into it now. I'm excited about that. I love working on it. If I wasn't working for them, I'd be working even a lot less. So that's one client that's taking probably 12 to 15 hours a week, I would say. So yeah, I was working a lot less before them and I was cool with that, but I'll take the little bit of extra consulting income now because I love it. That's it. See, I get to choose what I work on and I love what I'm working on. That's what makes it worth putting in that extra time. But yeah, I was working 15, probably 15 hours a week before I started with them, making good money. So I'm encouraging everybody. I'm hoping if nothing today, I inspire everybody to look into this and do better for themselves. And you can make that money, even if it's a side hustle, go after it hard.
I think you did inspire everyone who is listening. You've inspired me. So thank you so much again. And then sometimes we have this temptation to see people who have spent a lot of time doing something. They've invested the years and the time to get to where they are. So for example, someone may not have a business at all. You know, they're just starting to think about this. They're used to working their normal 9 to 5 or something like that. And then they see you and they hear your story and they think that this was an overnight thing. I want to be clear because based on what you just shared, this was not an overnight thing for you, right? You
No,
didn't go
no.
from ground zero to making to your to being a 6-figure solopreneur overnight. So what would you say, just, a little last nugget to those people who are they haven't even cracked the ground yet, but the thought is there, the seed has been planted. What would you say to those people just to keep them encouraged?
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless of where you're at, and this is whether you're a newer professional or whether you've been, I mean, those of you who've been around in the field and have more experience, obviously you could probably easily come up with some type of product that you could monetize that somebody would pay something for. That makes sense. If you've been working in the field 20 or 30 years, if you could go into consulting, obviously. But like I mentioned, throughout the course of the presentation, it's like whatever, being one step ahead of the person behind you. So you need to figure out what knowledge and expertise do you have, or what kind of product can you create that would help someone else. At some point, there was something you didn't know anything about, but you learned about it. And now if you dig in and you learn all that you can, and then you start putting information out there, and a good way to test it is to go on social media and start sharing free educational content and see what resonates with people. If it resonates and it's good, then you're like, hey, how do I monetize this? How do I get this into a physical product, a digital product, something like that, some type of coaching? And if it doesn't resonate, then you're like, okay, maybe this isn't really needed, as much as I think. So I don't feel like, again, with technology, you don't need to spend a lot of time spinning your wheels. I think we have enough access to people to test what we think people might want. And then after a while, you might be like, hey, would you pay for this? Yeah, absolutely. Because what I found is sometimes what you consider basic knowledge that you're like, oh yeah, this is basic knowledge. Nobody would pay for this. Guess what? It may be basic knowledge to you. You may see it that way, but other people may not. They may know nothing about it and be willing to pay. Like me, I like to pay money for people who can cut my learning curve. Either A, I'm going to outsource something to you completely because I don't want to learn it, or B, I want to go to someone who has the knowledge and expertise to teach me how I can do this for myself in an efficient way. And so again, to somebody else, it might be super basic, but because they've spent years doing it, rather than me spending weeks or months to learn something on my own, I'd rather pay somebody a couple $100s, few $100s, just to get that knowledge from them to cut down my learning curve if it's something I want to do. And everybody has something. And like I said, think out of HIM and coding. Even if there's something else you love to do, you can monetize that. But Justin Welsh, everybody follow Justin Welsh on LinkedIn. He is like my idol, like over there on LinkedIn. I love him. I love him, love him, love him.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much, Stacie. It doesn't look like there are any follow-up questions. Julia just posted that in the chat. We are a little bit over our time, but this has been so good and well worth it. I'm not even mad about it. Like, thank you so much, Stacie. I appreciate what you shared with us. Definitely some jewels, some gems. And we have been enriched by this information just as I thought we would. So everyone who has tuned in, thank you so much for tuning in with us. This has been an absolute pleasure, a wonderful time. Here's some information on how to stay connected with Stacie. She is on LinkedIn. Her company is on YouTube. And then there is also Facebook information here as well.
Yeah, the best
Right?
place to connect with me is LinkedIn. That's where I spend the most time. And then if you flip over to the next slide, I started offering career coaching. This is something people would ask me for every now and then. And I'm like, I really don't do it. And so I wanted to give people a mechanism. So there's this cool little app called Monect. And even if you don't connect with me on that and ask me anything, it's a super cool platform where you have celebrities and other like, business people, you can pay them to answer questions for you. And I just love the concept in general. So I'm like, oh, let me get on there and try it. I'm not one of the big fish in that huge pond there, but I love the concept because you can actually, like, there's somebody that I like and I follow, a business person, and he charges $100 like for a question. I'm like, to me, I'm like, if I want business advice, if I could pay $100 for business advice to this person I like admire and respect, I'm like, I'm going to do. So the platform is great, not just for me, but for any other area that you might want some advice. Some people answer questions for as cheap as $10. So there's a lot
Wow.
out there on the platform. So I'm promoting the platform. I get nothing for promoting the platform, but I also love the platform.
Well, thank you. Thank you for
You're
sharing
welcome.
your information and resources. Again, we're looking through the chat here. I don't see any particular questions. I think you've just done a great job at sharing information and targeting areas that people might ask. So you did a great job at foreseeing those and providing the answers into your presentation. I just want to remind everyone, you can scan this QR code showing on the screen here to connect with the qualified. We too are on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also check out the Qualified's website to learn more about how we may be able to serve you. So please do connect with us. We'll be waiting for you. We do want to encourage everyone to join us for our next Brunch and Learn. It's Thursday. Every third Thursday of the month, we offer these hour-long sessions. So our next one is on June 20th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and we would hope that you will follow us so that you can learn more and about when it is time to register for that event as well. If you are interested, those in the audience, those listening by way of LinkedIn, those listening by way of YouTube, if you are in the audience and you have, as Stacie has shared with us, some type of subject matter that you would like to present and share with others, we are welcoming you to email us your interest in presenting at an upcoming Brunch and Learn. We are always looking for fantastic speakers, and we've been very blessed to have some of the most amazing people that I've ever met come on and present and share with our audience. So if you want to be one of those next people or next presenters, then please do email us at events@the-qualified.com. So everyone, that is all of the great information we have for you for today. Stacie, you're getting a whole lot of thank yous and applauses in the chat. We want to just say thank you to Stacie Buck, who has shared with us today on being a six-figure solopreneur. Until next time, everyone, stay shining and stay blessed, and we'll see you at our next Brunch and Learn. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.